The heart of the lightsaber, the crystal is. Focuses the Force from the Jedi, it does.
We recently discovered information buried in Star Wars canon that tells us more about kyber crystals than we had initially concluded. Specifically, we uncovered information about why the Jedi chose Ilum for the staging ground of their sacred excursion, rather than other worlds that produce kyber. And we also found out that our initial understanding of the red lightsaber blade in canon was not fully accurate. So, why do the Jedi choose Ilum? And what determines a lightsaber blade's color? And more interestingly, how do Darksiders create their menacing red blades? Today we are taking another look at the mystical heart of a lightsaber and discussing everything we know about their nature, uses, and even their substitutes. Building a lightsaber is a rite of passage that all Jedi must undergo before becoming Padawans. It is a sacred ritual revered by all Jedi as the moment when a youngling takes their first steps to becoming a Jedi. A Jedi must construct a lightsaber that is truly their own, and at the heart of each lightsaber is a crystal. These were known as kyber crystals and were mysterious minerals known for their resonance in the Force. In true space fantasy fashion, each kyber crystal would call out to only one single Jedi, and were not transferable. Crystals would only call out to a Jedi with whom they were able to link easily to through the Force. Even though the Force flowed through all things and could flow between any Jedi and any crystal, there were certain points in the galaxy between which the Force could connect more easily and more directly than others. Crystals would choose Jedi between which they would have an easy connection, allowing the Force to face little resistance when flowing between them. Of course, this was not to say that a Jedi would be unable to wield another Jedi's lightsaber. In fact, we see this several times across all mediums of Star Wars. This only means that a Jedi would not bond as closely with another crystal, and the Force would flow more like a slow connection in a low bandwidth Wi-Fi cafe. The bond between Jedi and crystal was natural from the start, but was always strengthened through focused meditation. It was actually said that Darth Maul used to meditate with his crystals for days at a time, forming a link so strong that the Sith and crystals responded instantly and as one with one mind. Their link was so deep that the blades would feel weightless in Maul's hands, and the crystals would anticipate and accentuate Maul's movements as he made them. During the age of the Galactic Republic, this coming-of-age ceremony of claiming one's crystal took place on the icy world of Ilum, where young Jedi were sent to claim lightsaber crystals of their own. However, Ilum is not the only planet in the galaxy to produce these valuable artifacts. We learned in Rogue One and surrounding material that the crystals can also be found on Jedha. And between Gadgets and Gear, the novelization of Rogue One, and Aftermath Empire's End, we can also know that kyber crystals can be found on many other planets, including Dantooine, as was the case in Legends, Christosis, Lothal, and among many other planets, even Tatooine of all places. So, knowing this, the question becomes, why did the Jedi use Ilum almost exclusively in their gathering of kyber? Well, the answer is hinted at in the Ahsoka novel and can be inferred with everything we know about the bond between a Jedi and crystal. As we mentioned earlier, a Jedi can use any crystal that they find, but the connection between Jedi and crystal will not be as effortless in cases where the bond is not formed immediately. As such, a brash Padawan could easily return carrying the wrong crystal in hand and may simply try to brute force a connection, resulting in a weak connection in the best case scenario and a bleeding crystal in the worst. The use of Ilum was an attempt by the Jedi to prevent this. In the Ahsoka novel, the narrator comments that the crystal calling toward their Jedi would hum and glow softly.
Something's flashing.
However, these signals are only noticeable by the Jedi whom they are calling to.
I can't see anything.
Planets such as Ilum or Jedha are full of crystals and have such a plentiful supply that a Padawan could easily return with the wrong crystal in hand, totally unaware of their mistake. According to the Ahsoka novel, however, the crystals on Ilum are almost indistinguishable from ice, keeping a Padawan from noticing a crystal that was not directly calling to them. Without the glow or hum of the crystal's call, a Jedi would wander aimlessly through the ice, never aware of millions of crystals surrounding them. This ensured that the Jedi initiates would only notice the crystals that had linked with their personal imprint in the Force, and would keep them from selecting any crystal that was destined for another. This was why the Jedi did not take their initiates to Jedha. Unlike Ilum, the green-tinted minerals could easily be spotted and mined out from the brown rock that encased them. Likewise, a Jedi Padawan on the search for a crystal would be surrounded by potential hearts for their sabers and may simply take one out of exasperation or resignation. By taking the Jedi to Ilum, the young initiates are compelled to rely only on the Force in order to find their crystals. It is akin to removing all distractions so that you may clearly see the path placed before you. This is also why the Empire favored Jedha for their kyber mining. Because kyber crystals were so adept at focusing energy into a powerful beam of light, kyber became the linchpin of the Death Star's weapon system. Now, it is true that the Empire also mined crystals from Ilum. However, the process required them to excavate large chunks of ice and melt them down until only the crystals remained. Furthermore, the fact that the Jedi preferred Ilum for their rite of passage meant that the kyber crystals were not left untouched long enough to grow beyond the size that would fit in a lightsaber hilt. The crystals on Jedha were left untouched for centuries, continuing to grow over time until their hopes of fitting inside a lightsaber hilt had long since been abandoned. These crystals would continue to grow untouched and ignored beneath the Kyber Temple until they reached massive sizes, much like the crystal we see in Star Wars Rebels. While it was still possible that crystals of that size existed under the ice of Ilum, the repeated journeys to the icy planet by the Jedi meant that far fewer crystals were ignored long enough to grow to be so large. When a Jedi first obtains their crystal, they are encouraged to meditate with it. It is during this meditation that the bond between Jedi and crystal is strengthened further, as the two are paired together permanently, and it is during this process that a lightsaber crystal will begin to resonate with that Jedi's particular personality, manifesting in the color of the lightsaber blade. Now, up until now, it has been believed in canon that the only way to achieve a red lightsaber blade was to take a kyber crystal and torture it through the Force. By imparting one's own pain and anguish into the crystal, the kyber was made to bleed, becoming tainted and red. It turns out, however, that this was only one way to achieve a red lightsaber blade. In fact, any Darksider who meditates with their crystal will inevitably cause the lightsaber to bleed, shining as a deep red indicator of one's own imbalance in the Force. Taking a crystal of a dead Jedi and making it bleed in the Force was a badge of honor among Sith, and seen as a mark of one's own dominance and conquest. However, this does not account for the Sith who lived between the time of Darth Bane and Darth Maul, who existed for a millennia in secret without any Jedi to kill or crystals to claim. It was actually revealed in the Ahsoka novel that this is not the only way to achieve a red lightsaber. Ahsoka comments in the narration that through darkside meditation, a Sith can actually corrupt even innate rocks into dark red crystals by making them bleed the same way as they would a kyber crystal. This little footnote is actually a reference to an old Legends technique that has been brought back into canon. Because the Sith do not have access to kyber-rich worlds like Ilum or Dantooine, the Sith were forced to create their own crystals synthetically. In Legends, it was their artificial nature that produced the signature red glow, and although in canon this is a mark of the dark side energy being imparted through meditation, it seems that the idea of a synthetic crystal is still one that exists in canon. Without access to kyber, the post-Bane era Sith were forced to create their own crystals. This means that the old Legends use of synthetic crystals is still canon, as darkside users can corrupt and twist matter through perversions in the Force. However, the difference between canon and Legends is that a synthetic crystal is not the only way to acquire a red crystal in canon, but is simply an option that a Sith may choose. Since the Sith do not reflect their personality through the color of their blades like the Jedi, the method they choose to acquire a red crystal is the biggest link between their lightsaber and their persona. By taking inert matter and corrupting it into synthetic crystal, a Sith proves that he is master of all, and that the universe bends to his whim. If the universe denies him him something, like a crystal, he will create his own by sheer force of will. Conversely, to bleed the kyber crystal of a dead Jedi demonstrates something else. In doing this, the Sith proves that he is a great warrior, a killer of Jedi. He is strong enough to destroy his enemies and take what he desires. Finally, a Sith who was once a Jedi and bleeds his own kyber crystal simply demonstrates that the good within them has been purged. And now that we've talked about this hidden information surrounding kyber crystals, I want to know what you guys think. If you were a Sith in the new canon, which of these methods would you use to acquire a red kyber crystal? Would you bleed your own, bleed an enemy's, or would you brute force one into reality like the EU Sith of old, or the post-Bane era lords in canon? Leave your answer down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and as always, may the lore be with you, now and forever.